If you like our video, click the button to subscribe to our channel and get easy access to new content. To see our full suite of ad-free video courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides, visit us at www.teachucomp.com. The Mixer Brush tool in Photoshop simulates the intermixing of wet paint on canvas within an image. To use the Mixer Brush tool in Photoshop, select it from the Tools panel, where it shares a button in the Tools panel with the Brush tool, the Pencil tool, and the Color Replacement tool. The Tools panel displays the last of these tools you selected. So make sure you select the Mixer Brush tool by clicking and holding down on this button, and then selecting the Mixer Brush tool choice from the side menu that appears if needed. To set the options for the Mixer Brush tool, use the settings in the Options bar control panel. Like the Brush tool, you can click the Click to open the Brush Preset Picker button to show the Brush Preset Picker panel, where you can select a brush preset and change its brush tip settings. You can also show or hide the Brush Settings panel by clicking the Toggle the Brush Settings panel button in the Options bar control panel. The Mixer Brush tool has a unique paint color well within the Options bar control panel that determines the color you apply to the canvas and how the color mixes with the canvas color and with other paints it picks up from within the image. If you hover your mouse pointer over this paint color well, it shows the screen tip of current brush load. This is the color you apply when you use the Mixer Brush tool. To load a paint color into the color well, either select a foreground color or hold down the Alt key on your keyboard or Option for Max, and then click a color on the canvas to select it. To restrict the loaded color to solid colors only if desired, click the drop-down arrow to the right of the button and ensure there is a check mark in front of the Load Solid Colors Only command. If not, then click it to check it. If unchecked, you can use the Alt or Option click method to select paint from the canvas that contains multiple colors to paint them to a new location. When initially painting with the Mixer Brush tool on a new canvas, you will often paint the foreground color you select. Alternatively, you can directly click the color well in the Options bar control panel to open the Color Picker Mixer Brush Color dialog box to set the same color too. As you paint on the canvas with the selected color, the color picks up the canvas color and shows it within the current brush load color well. If you change the color and then paint over other previous brush strokes, those may be added to the current brush load too. When you paint on the canvas, you apply the color or colors shown by the current brush load color well. To clear the current brush load, click the drop-down arrow to the right of the current brush load color well, and then select the Clean Brush command. You must then load another paint color using the previous techniques shown. Alternatively, to reload the last paint color used, click the drop-down arrow to the right of the current brush load button, and then select the Load Brush command. To toggle loading the brush after each stroke on or off, click the Load the Brush After Each Stroke button in the Options bar control panel. If toggled off, you will need to manually reload the brush stroke color if you run out while painting using the Mixer Brush tool. To toggle cleaning the brush tool after each stroke on or off, click the Clean the Brush After Each Stroke button in the Options bar control panel. When painting the current brush load on the canvas, you need to consider the brush or paint wetness, the load of paint it applies, and the way that current brush load mixes with the existing paint on the canvas. These attributes are shown by the Wet, Load, and Mix percentage drop-down sliders in the Options bar control panel. The wet attribute determines how wet the brush and its paint strokes are, and how much paint the brush picks up from the canvas when painting across existing brush strokes. Larger percentages pick up and paint longer brush strokes on the canvas when you paint over existing colors. The load attribute determines how much of the color is loaded on the brush. A higher percentage lets you paint longer strokes. The mix attribute determines how much of the paint is applied by the current brush load versus paint applied from existing canvas brush strokes. At 100%, all paint comes from existing brush strokes and none from the current brush load. At 0%, all paint comes from the current brush load and none from the canvas, although the wet setting still determines the brush strokes that occur when the paints intermix. You can set the wet, load, and mix percentages by clicking the respective drop-down and then using the slider that appears to set the percentage. Alternatively, you can just type the desired percentage into the corresponding field. Alternatively, you can select from some preset brush attribute combinations by clicking the Useful Mixer Brush Combinations drop-down and then selecting one of the presets to adjust the related values. The remaining options in the Options Bar control panel for the Mixer Brush tool work the same as they do for the standard brush tool. You can use the Flow drop-down slider to set the brush flow and the Enable Airbrush Style Buildup Effects button to toggle that feature on or off. The Set Smoothing for Stroke drop-down slider lets you set the smoothing percentage, and the Set Additional Smoothing Options drop-down lets you check or uncheck the desired smoothing options. The Set Brush Angle field lets you enter a brush angle in degrees if desired. At the far right end of the Options Bar control panel, there is also the same pressure toggle button that you can turn on or off as needed. However, the Mixer Brush tool also contains a checkbox option for Sample All Layers in its Options Bar control panel that is not present for the standard brush tool. If you check the Sample All Layers checkbox, the Mixer Brush tool can then interact with paint from all the layers over which you either click or click and drag the tool, removing the default restriction of only interacting with paint in the currently selected layer within the Layers panel. You can check or uncheck this checkbox option as needed to enable or disable this feature as needed. To use the Mixer Brush tool after setting its options and selecting its paint load, simply click and drag with the tool in the selected layer within the Photoshop document to apply it. As you paint, note the changes to the current brush load color in the Current Brush Load Color well in the Options Bar control panel, and clean and load it with color as needed. Remember to click the subscribe button to see more of our videos. See our full suite of courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides at www.teachucomp.com.